Today marks the 47th anniversary of Roe v. Wade, the Supreme Court decision that nationally legalized abortion in the United States. But nearly 50 years after the landmark decision, a series of bans, restrictions, and court cases surrounding the procedure have made access to abortion less certain than ever.
CBS News reporter Kate Smith spoke with Alexis McGill Johnson, Planned Parenthood's acting president, during an exclusive interview in Davos, Switzerland, at the World Economic Forum.
What is the status of abortion and reproductive health in the United States today?
Here we are talking about the fourth industrial revolution, and yet we are still talking about the impact of all of these onerous restrictions and bans on access to safe and legal abortion in the states. We also know that almost 8 out of 10 Americans support Roe as the law of the land, and there's no state in the United States where where access to Roe people feel as though it should be overturned.
Even though Americans do support Roe v. Wade, many of them support many of the restrictions that could make Roe v. Wade effectively useless. I mean, how do you combat that? How do you look at that?
We're already living in a world where there are abortion deserts, where it is difficult to access. When you layer on this case, which, if it doesn't overturn Roe, will have the impact of effectively gutting Roe, the work that we have to do is to really kind of push back to our states and engage. If Roe's overturned, that means it goes back to the states, and we need to make sure that state by state we are fighting for access in every state legislature. And I think that's the long game.
Last year, we saw an unprecedented number of abortion bans and restrictions. This year, you say we're going to see more of the same. Does it ever feel like Planned Parenthood is losing this battle?
This isn't about Planned Parenthood. This is about the millions of people that we serve. And when you actually look at the state of support for Roe, the 77% of Americans who actually believe that Roe should be the law of the land, you have to wonder why it's not translating. To me, the case is that, there's a vocal minority who control the levers of power. And our work is to really shift those levers of power in 2020 to ensure that the will of the people actually remains the law of the land.
So Kate Smith joins us now with more. So Kate, what's Planned Parenthood hoping to do at Davos?
Good morning. So Planned Parenthood has kind of two functions that they're trying to achieve at Davos this year. The first is that they're here as a CEO of a major health organization. So they're looking for ways to modernize the way they deliver care, see how they can incorporate tech, big data into what they already do. Now, the second, of course, is corporate consciousness. So they're trying to figure out how they can put reproductive rights into the agenda of all of these corporations.
So how does Planned Parenthood view the future of abortion?
Well, when I was talking to Johnson this morning, she said that, we're in an uncertain time for abortion access, right? Last year, we saw an unprecedented number of abortion restrictions and bans. Over 300 of those were introduced. And this year, she said to expect more of the same. So we already have 2 states that are considering near total bans in the procedure, another so-called fetal heartbeat bill. And then, of course, at the center of all of this, we have the Supreme Court case in March. Now, as we previously reported, if in fact the Supreme Court upholds the law at the center of that case, abortion could be entirely eliminated in Louisiana. And what Johnson told me earlier today is that, many other states would follow that roadmap.
Is Planned Parenthood worried about the future of abortion access?
Of course they're worried. I mean, you have seen an unrelenting attack on the ability to access abortion in many southern and Midwest states. And you're also seeing political appointments in the federal court system that could make it even more devastating for access to the procedure. So not only do you have what we often talk about, the conservative justices on the Supreme Court level, you see 180 conservative federal judge picks on a state level. And that, that is where you see all of the action going on when Planned Parenthood, Center for Reproductive Rights are challenging these abortion restrictions. So when you're filling those seats with conservative appointments, that's going to have a gigantic impact on whether or not these laws are allowed to be implemented.
So what does polling say about support for abortion access?
So, Vlad, that's a really interesting question. Today, the Kaiser Family Foundation came out with a new study, and they said that even though you have about 80% of people who say they do support Roe v. Wade, many people actually support so many of the restrictions that we talk about all the time, the restrictions that make it virtually impossible to access abortion. So let's take the Supreme Court case in March, for example. Kaiser found that 69% of people actually agree with the law that's at the center of that case. And then, so often we talk about these so-called fetal heartbeat state bills. That report found that 48% of people actually support those laws and 50% oppose. So it's truly half and half. And you know what the takeaway there is, that even though people, in theory agree with Roe v. Wade, so many of these restrictions and so many of the way that, real people actually access this procedure are really, they're being scrutinized and people don't disagree with them.
All right. Kate Smith for us in Davos. Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank you.